If you're over 40 and trying to lose weight the healthy way, but your body isn't cooperating, this episode is for you. I'm Dr. Jae Hitson, and in part 2 of our Fat Loss Over 40 series, we're talking about something that most people are overlooking, their protein. Not powders, not gimmicks, real strategic nutrition that rebuilds your metabolism and helps you burn fat for good. If you've ever felt frustrated by your results or worried about losing muscle, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to fix that without wrecking your health in the process. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Fat Loss After 40 series. This is part 2 and I'm your host, Dr. Jae Hitson. So many of you have been working with me for a really long time and you know I hate talking about weight loss. And this series is going to be no different. I am not going to talk to you about weight loss. We are going to talk about fat loss. Now that's something I really care about. See, weight loss, there's a lot of ways to make that scale change that are incredibly unhealthy for you. There are these weight loss shots now that you can take that are known for helping people drop 10, 20, 30, 40 pounds, but to say they're damaging is kind of an understatement. I'm already getting the first huge wave of people who have had to be taken off of them because they're already in kidney damage or kidney failure. There are people who are starving themselves, and instead of losing weight the right way, what they're doing is they're actually burning up their muscle. And muscle weighs a lot more than fat, so the scale really goes down. But the problem is it totally wrecks your metabolism. So I was totally guilty of one of these. So this was many, many years ago, and several of my different colleagues and friends, they were just it was insane how much weight they're losing. And I was kind of jealous and I'm like, okay, let me in, let me try it, tell me what you're doing. And it was this just extreme restricted calories that was way, way too much. And yeah, definitely the scale went down and yeah, I got a lot smaller, but I lost so much muscle. And frankly, it wasn't healthy. It wasn't sustainable. It wasn't something we could keep going with. And I'm going to tell you, it took forever to recover because it totally devastated my metabolism. And unfortunately, that's what's kind of happening to a lot of these individuals who are doing these weight loss injections is they're just sabotaging their future for a little bit of temporary weight loss. Ever since then, I've been on a real journey to understand how people do it, especially after 40, because we know everything changes. How do you do it the right way, the healthy way, the sustainable way, and the way that leads to ultimate longevity? Because I even see where people have overburdened their systems trying to keep the weight down, but they're also even trading off their cognitive function. They're losing some of their clarity, their sharpness. We're even seeing some early onset dementia symptoms because they don't have the nutritional reserves that they need. Come on, who cares if you're skinny if you don't even know who you are? So what we're doing in the series is we're going through how to do it the way that you just feel great while you're doing it. It's not going to be that wonderful instant gratification thing that Americans are so notorious for, but it is something that you will feel better instantly, and your future self is just gonna thank you. So in part 1, we really went into why the body shifts so much and why it's so different after the age of 40. And we hit on the very first principle of the right kind of calorie deficit. Now you can go back to part 1 if you missed that, but I'm also gonna really encourage you to download the guide that's linked in the description. Let me just tell you that I am notorious for tinkering with my projects. That guide that you download, it started off as a 2-page project that now has turned into a 30-page all-inclusive. And let's face it, it's going to keep expanding from there. Each week there are new insights that I just want to share and I keep putting them in there. And I also just keep answering the questions that keep coming to me as we've been developing the series. So today we have to talk about protein. This is the second major step in our fat loss pyramid. So if you're over the age of 40, definitely over 50, you did a lot of imprinting during the 1980s. And unfortunately, that whole thing where you eating these very carby, but low fat, low calorie, no nutrient foods, and there was no focus on protein whatsoever. Well, we have to kind of rewire your brain. Protein is not a fad. If you want to be lean, trim, and strong well into your 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and then on, you need good quality protein. Now, for those of you who are kind of in the beginner level, proteins are typically in most of your meats. There are definitely plant-based proteins, and of course, there's different ways to supplement proteins. There's a lot of different protein powders. You can download the food guide and get way more into all of that. But what I want to talk about is number 1, how much protein do you really need? Now, if your goal is for fat loss, while everyone is pretty different, in general, a good rule of thumb for women is about 80 grams to 90 grams, maybe up to 100 grams of protein a day. Now, for men, you're definitely looking at more like 110 to like 150 grams of protein a day. Now, these are pretty general. They're good rules of thumb. If you really want to know kind of your exact number that you're shooting for, I really have to look at your labs. One word of caution about going with excessive protein. This is not one of the cases where more is better. I have absolutely seen where people have done damage to their kidneys with too much protein, especially synthetic proteins. Now, especially for those of you over 40, I am just really not a fan of creatine. At least not unless you're getting your labs checked on a very, very consistent basis. And I mean like every 3 to 6 months. While there's so many people who can use it safely, man, I've just seen way too many people who are unfortunately really damaging their kidneys. So here's what I'm just trying to say here. Don't make this more complicated than it needs to be. And don't try to game the system. Whole food proteins will do the job. In general, they're really low in calories, they have a ton of nutrients, and they're safe. And I know so many of you on here, we're watching YouTube. I get it. You're researchers, you're intelligent people. You're always looking for better and better ways to do these things. Can I just tell you that based on the labs and all of the different thousands of people I worked with, this is just one of those times, keep it simple. And if you want to follow my advice, keep it natural. Now let's get real about what's going to happen when you make this shift and you start having a more protein dense, lower carb, right amount of calories diet. So your body is used to burning on carbs, especially if you've been in that typical diet frame. Carbs are easy to burn, and your body really loves carbs as a fuel source. When you switch and you start asking your body to start burning proteins instead of carbs, it's going to revolt. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're asking it to work harder. But see, here's the cool thing. When you're burning protein, it requires more of your body. It requires more metabolism. So naturally, it starts boosting your metabolism. But for the first 3 days of this process, you feel like you're dying inside and you are craving carbs like they are a life fuel. Okay, there's no way around this that I have found that's in any way healthy. So what you have to do is just kind of willpower your way through it. Understand this isn't going to last forever. It's just while I'm converting over from one system to the next, it's going to feel a little uncomfortable. And as long as you're prepared for that, it's really not that bad. But I will say this, it's kind of like any of those of you who've ever worked your way off of caffeine and you have to go through that whole caffeine detox process, and then you go back to caffeine and then you have to do the whole process over again. Well, I kind of encourage you, once you do this, really do stick with it so you don't have to go through this whole process of carb conversion to protein conversion again. When I did this last time, I thought I was just going to eat an entire loaf of bread because the body was just screaming of how much more work this was. But it is really, really cool how much more energy you have when you go from that sluggish carb burning. It's like that post-Thanksgiving coma kind of feeling that, from that kind of burning to this high-powered protein burn. This is how a lot of these individuals who you see who are 80 years old and running circles around everybody else, they're doing a lot of things right. And one of the things is that their metabolism is just working on a different level. And this is just one of those cool things that can get you there too. Now, another important point, protein is not always easy to absorb, especially if you have digestive issues. I know as soon as I said this, some of you are already groaning because you think that every time you start eating more protein, you get constipated. And let's be honest, that's kind of true for a lot of you. But here's what you can do. Number one, work your way up slowly. You do not have to go all the way to 100 grams the very first day. Number two, test out which proteins do work for you. Some of you may need to be a little bit more plant-based. Some of you need to be more carnivore. Just find out what's going to work for your system. Point number three, digestive enzymes are a huge help, especially when you're first getting started with this. So what digestive enzymes do is they go in and they kind of break down your food so your digestive tract doesn't have to do all of the work. What I've found for a lot of people, this really helps them get started. And eventually your digestive system it builds up a little bit of its own stamina in a way. And then you don't really have to use the digestive enzymes nearly as much, maybe only for certain really heavy meals. The other thing that I've learned, most people kind of eat eat the same thing most days. So once you get yourself regulated and you're doing well with your consistent meals, then you only have to use the digestive enzymes when you switch things up, when you go out to eat, when you are trying some new meals. And probiotic foods are quite amazing for this. This is going to be a lot of your fermented foods. So if you have digestive issues, adding some of these really wonderful probiotic foods, it's just a really great idea. And one of the things I'm really going to encourage you to do, if you are somebody who does have problems absorbing proteins. So for instance, if you know you've been consuming enough protein, a blood test, it's called total protein, can actually tell you basically how you're scoring in this. We want your total protein to be at least above a 7.0. Anything below that, you're not absorbing all that great. You can use the recommendations that I just listed, or the next time we go over your exploratory panel, we can go through the customized solutions that are right for you. I hope most of you can appreciate, I can't tell you everything on these videos because some people should not do some of these different things. They can actually be harmful. So what we do is we give you the stuff that works in general for the majority of people, but a lot of individuals, we just have to get more custom, especially if we're trying to get a different result. So with regards to proteins, the one thing I want to state is try to use more natural proteins, meat, chicken, beef, turkey. I'm not much of a fan of pork just because of the inflammatory properties, but if you don't have a problem with it, so be it. Fish, those naturally occurring proteins. Try to get away from processed proteins like sausages, processed meats. Now, obviously, the cleaner the meat, the better, but this video is geared towards fat loss, not necessarily detox. So again, for the most part, clean, naturally occurring meats. If you want to do plant-based, you can do a quick internet search and you can find the high-value plant-based proteins. Now, as far as supplement powders go, some of you will need them to get to your levels. I mean, it's just how your diet goes. I don't really have any particular brand that I absolutely endorse. The one thing I will say is I lean towards plant-based protein powders, especially my favorite is PEA, green pea. I just find that as we age, we do better with certain things and not as well with others. And I just really don't run into anybody who's had problems with pea protein, unlike some of the soy and whey-based products. So now you have parts 1 and 2. So we have to start with the right kind of calorie deficit. In the download, it will actually get into how to calculate that. And now fortifying that with the right kind of proteins that builds the physical internal structure that you need to be strong, have a burning metabolism, and something that's going to work for you for years and decades to come. Now in part 3, we're going to be getting into the right kind of exercise, and it's not what you think. So make sure you tune in, subscribe, and join me for part 3 of the Fat Loss Over 40 series. Thank you for joining me today. I hope today's insights about protein have empowered you with a new perspective on sustainable fat loss and metabolic health. Remember, it's not just about the scale. It's about long-term vitality and strength. Don't forget to download your free Fat Loss Over 40 guide and tune in for part 3, where we will reveal the optimal exercise strategies for lasting results. I'm Dr. Jae Hitson, wishing you a healthier, stronger journey. I'll see you next time.